would like to first acknowledge the traditional Indigenous lands that we all live and gather on today. Although this meeting is online, we each still enjoy the pleasure of living and working within an Indigenous territory. To highlight the importance of this acknowledgement, I urge you, following this session, to visit the Native Land digital website and search the territories on which you are located. The website is www.native-land.ca. This session is presented by Glenn Daniels II. Glenn is a corporate leadership trainer and coach with his organization Touchstone Publishers. Glenn has over 30 years of experience helping set strategies to create effective changes from within thousands of individuals and organizations, and has used storytelling to connect audiences with the skills and techniques that enable them to rapidly become great leaders. If you have any questions that you would like me to ask Glenn during the session time, please write them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screens and not the chat box. Without further delay, let me welcome your speaker for the session, Glenn.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Lisa, for that. Well, folks, here you got off to a great start this morning. I want to just share with you a thought that I heard when I was reading through I'll learn how to talk tomorrow, who's presenting to you. I discovered that you're going to have a great 2 days. You're going to have just a fantastic 2 days. I hope you can pick and choose the session that serves you best, because I believe you're going to get nothing but skills and techniques throughout this entire 2 days. So welcome on board. Appreciate you spending the time with us here. So again, my name is Glenn Daniels, and we want to share just a couple pieces of information here with you. Give me just a second here, because now we got a problem. There we go. All righty. So essential leadership skills. This is what we're going to be talking about today, and how to create constant and never-ending improvement. We're going to be looking at several different areas that you can become powerful in, but as you can imagine, this is a big field. It's kind of hard to get everything done in one day, to cover the whole thing. So we're going to spend some time doing this. I want to share with you a couple rules that I have. The number one rule that I have is that I'm going to have fun. Okay, I don't really care if you have fun. No, I'm just kidding about that. I think you will have fun too. I'm going to have a lot of fun. I will also let you know that I crack myself up. So you don't have to laugh at any of my jokes. Can't hear you anyway, so that's fine. But I just tell jokes, and sometimes you might hear me just laughing because something funny has hit my mind. Number 3 rule is you have to understand that I'm a geek, and it's going to show up for you. It's not a problem at all. It's just going to happen. That's just the way it's going to be. I'm just a geek out on things that maybe I shouldn't, but I do. All righty. So essential leadership skills, talking about making a difference. There was a book out that talked about knowing the why first. So let me show you the why. The why is simply this. Leaders are in a position to help other leaders care about others. In other words, you're in a position to help people care about people. We spend most of our days, most of our lives at the work site. Don't you think it's important that we start to care about each other? Number 2, why? Leaders understand the impact and the uplift that they have on so many people. Okay. 3, leaders are helping people make it a better world. In your case, make it a better, safer world. Okay. Work does take up the majority of our time, majority of our spaces, so we have to be very careful about that and make sure that we're paying attention to that. So I'm going to ask Lisa to go ahead and open up the questions or the chat room, and I'd like to know, what are your concerns as a leader for the future? What are your concerns as a leader for the future? Lisa, if you see any that are outstanding, you think that everybody needs to share, maybe you can do that for us.
For
But
sure.
what are your concerns? What do you guys feel is the concerns, the things that maybe keep you up at night about being a leader in your industry?
So we have change fatigue.
Change fatigue, yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? And the reason why we get fatigued by it, because the people who have to do the actual work get ignored sometimes. Any other good ones in there?
We have, I think, a lot about mentorship opportunities for folks just joining the industry.
Okay. Yep. We're going to talk about that just a little bit, because believe it or not, what your number one job is as a leader relates right back to that. So if we get any more throughout the course of the day, let's go ahead and just bring those out. But I want to share with you something about me. So let's see, we have 90 minutes, so I'm going to speak for about 45 minutes all about me, tell you all about me so you know who I am. Not really, not even going to come close to that. But what's most important to me is that I bring skills and techniques to the table. I want to bring you some skills and techniques. I want you to get better at what you're doing. And I don't believe motivation has a very large role in that. I don't believe in fake till you make it. What I believe is that you'll become confident, the better you become competent. The more competency you build up, the better your confidence will be. And that will happen when you have skills and techniques. What I'm not going to bring you is fluff. I don't think you need fluff. What do you need today? Next question for you guys. What do you need today and tomorrow? What value do you want to bring out of this session for the next 2 days? Just throw that in there. I'll have Lisa come back to that in just a minute so we can discuss what is it that you need today in order for you to feel like, or today and tomorrow, in order to feel like this was a valuable 2 days. You got a lot out of it. I think I know what's coming. I feel like you're going to get a lot of great value out of this, but there's still the question is going to be, what do you need today? In fact, let me just narrow it down. What do you need from this session today? Lisa, any good comments there?
Not yet. We have a few that have answered your last question, if you'd like me to read some of those.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have burnout from long hours is a popular one. Weight of responsibility and who is ultimately responsible.
Okay.
Oh.
Those are real world problems.
Yeah, we've had a few come in regarding your question about what they want to learn from this session. It says, I need to convince the industry to decarbonize film production by 2025. How to keep members of a team present and engaged when tech consumes a lot of our time.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. We're going to hit those on a kind of a high level so you can kind of get the flow for it. One thing I want to bring to you or share with you is that you can get a lot of skills, a lot of techniques from the next 2 days, these 2 days. The challenge is, though, if you get ideals, if you get skills and techniques and you take them home and do nothing with them, it's kind of a waste of your time. You know, it's kind of like that farmer who went to the city to learn all about good farming techniques. And they said, hey, you got to use your tractor for this and you got to do this, got to plow. Here's how you do it. Here's the seed. He goes home and he has no tractor. If you don't go home and apply this, immerse yourself into this, nothing we talk about will have the power that it should. So one of my rules is start thinking now, how can you implement this into your life, into your organizations? So real quick, so you kind of know, who am I? Well, I'm a native of the best city on earth. So enough said on that one. Lisa already told you I have 30 plus years of experience. I have worked with various industries, Pulitzer Prize nominated for a book a while back, and I'm do TEDx and keynotes and TED Talks. Just enjoy what I do. All righty. So what's really most important to me, though, what really is most important to me is this little guy. This is my world. This is my little grandson. Boy knows no fear, no shame, and just enjoys life. Just like to follow him. So that's all you need to know about me. The rest of it will creep out as the day goes by. So that 45 minutes turned into about 4 minutes. So we did well. What are the essential skills of leadership? Well, I think they're in 4 areas. Number 1 is communication. You got to have some great communicating so you can communicate with true confidence. You want to get people to make a change, give them true confidence. You got to start speaking in the language that is heard by that person you're speaking to, not what you're comfortable with, but what they need to hear, how they need to hear it. You got to figure out how to avoid the conflicts, the HR conflicts, the OSHA conflicts. Those type of conflicts that come up. A good communicator can figure that out. A good communicator can create an environment of trust. Oh, that is so central in your industry. If people don't trust you, people get hurt. Okay. And then you got to have listening and hearing to what's not being said. That's a great communicator. Okay. Second area, your attitude. So the attitude is far more important than anything. It's more important than your intelligence. It's your attitude. There's 6 parts of a powerful attitude. How your attitude can actually save lives. And when you have a great positive attitude, it creates mastery. Third, leadership intelligence. You got to learn what compels people to act. got to learn how to be more productive with others. You must start to keep your emotions in check. Leadership intelligence also means becoming self-aware, knowing the importance of empathy and how to apply it without losing productivity. You got to be able to build rapport across boundaries. And then you have to also be able to team build. That's leadership intelligence. Leadership skills. So you got to be able to effectively delegate, create accountability across the board, motivate people, be able to coach, earn trust and respect, have that difficult conversation with the difficult people, and get in the habit of hiring the right people in the first place. Those are all skills. Super quick story for you. A lady who eventually became a friend of mine came to one of my workshops, and at the end of it, she came to the back table and bought one of my books and then asked me to sign it and said, excuse me very much, I enjoyed your talk. Goodbye. Gone. 6 months later, she gives me a phone call, and she says, her name is Melissa. She goes, Glenn, I need for you to come out here because I need you to do what we talked about. Well, I was getting ready to tell her, my schedule's full. I can't do that. And I started to tell her that when she just jumped in. Listen, I need you now. We just finished selling our third lawsuit for a wrongful termination. The insurance company's paying it, but that's the third time, and since I saw you 6 months ago, that we had to make a settlement for $80,000. That's a lot of money. But she said, that's okay, but this all could have been avoided if we would have done some of these things. We would have taken that leadership skills. This all could have been avoided because our managers are not working on their craft of being a leader. But she said the worst thing is that a student got hurt at one of the centers. The mother was so infuriated, she didn't even go to a lawyer first. She went right to the media. And now that school got shut down. Everybody's tuition, is for kids. Everybody's tuition had to be refunded, returned, because it got shut down. This was prior to COVID, but it got shut down. And it was just really costing her. And now her leadership is in question, as well as all the other leaders. She said all this could have been avoided if everybody would have just learned how to be a leader. She said, I thought I could teach everybody, but I just don't have time for that. Leadership skills are so important. So let's talk about which of the 4 essential skills is most important to you. Communications, attitude, leadership intelligence, or leadership skills. Which one of those is most important to you? Throw that in there so I kind of know what direction I want to go in today. Oh, yeah, that's actually, so throw that in there. There's a little survey for you. Well, okay. So that's the other rule I forgot to tell you. I'm a great mind reader, and I knew communication is going to be at the top of the list. I can read your minds. It took me a while to learn how to do it over the internet, but I got you now. I can read your minds. So be very careful. I can read your minds, what you're thinking. So communication is out there. So we'll go ahead and close that poll. And that's the one we'll kind of focus in on after after a little bit here, okay? So we can go ahead and close that poll off and get ready to go on. I guess share results. I don't know how that works, but we'll let that get taken care of. All righty. So I don't know if that's going to come off the screen. It's in the middle of my screen, so I assume it's in the middle of yours. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. The next thing I want to share with you is you have those 4 major areas of essential leadership skills. I want you to think about those as an app. Okay, there are applications, software applications, something like that. But we need to look at the operating system. We want to break down the operating system that all these applications work in. There's really 2 areas of this, and we want to look at one of those today so that you can have a great idea of how this is going to take place for you. So first off, we're going to look at the operating system, but let's look at our agenda here first. Get that here for you. So our operating system, we're going to look at the agenda. So the outline for today is we're going to look at our agenda was going to be 100% responsibility. That's your operating system. If you can operate from that, you're going to be in a good spot. So we're going to show you that. Why your attitude is more important than intelligence. We're going to point there. I'm going to share a story with you about one of the most powerful people you ever want to meet, and that's Captain Susan. And then we're going to dive into a little bit of communication skills and work through that just a little bit so that we're there. So we're going to take a deep dive into attitude right now. We're going to take a deep, good look at that, because with that skill in place, all the other skills can get in there. So, the true power of your attitude. What's the cost of a bad attitude? How much does it cost you to have a bad attitude? Job discrimination. Does that happen when you have a bad attitude? Treating others as inferiors when you have a bad attitude. Erratic, aggressive driving from some of your folks when they have a bad attitude about things. Don't you get upset and drive faster when you're upset? Things like taking credit for other people's work, or mocking people's race, gender, age, disability, sexual orientation, or religion. Some people, when they have a bad attitude, that's what they go to. They attack. What does that cost you? Okay. In Melissa's case, wrongful termination, that was a huge problem. You guys have to worry about EEOC issues, but what you have to worry about more so than some others is OSHA issues. Correct? You have to worry about OSHA issues. And those oftentimes come from a bad attitude. So, what you can't do is hide from things. Okay? If you try to hide from issues, you're going to have a problem. What would be the cost if you did hide from some of those issues that we just outlined? What would be the cost to you? What is the cost benefit of you being 100% responsible? Okay. I'd like for you to share your thoughts as to, do it in 1 or 2 words, as to what is the benefit of you being 100% responsible for your life, for everything that goes on. I will say this to you. If we were in a room together, I'll tell you how that conversation goes. Hey, it was great. We'd have a great, fantastic life. I'd have everything I need. That's how that conversation goes. But on the other hand, if you try to hide from things, if you try to hide from what's important to you, you have a slight issue there. For you folks, if you hide from things, you are not going to be able to consistently apply company policies and across all production sites. You have company policies that you have to put in. You have to follow. A bad attitude, you can't hide from that. Providing strong, effective leadership to the production staff. As leaders, you have to do this. Okay? You can't hide from that. You must have day-to-day safe operations. That's what you're about. You can't hide from that responsibility. What's unique, you have to effectively communicate with all levels of the cast, the crew, the physical production executives, and the staff to establish, short and long-term health and safety goals. The last one, kind of hard. Work with OSHA and all the other regulatory agencies. These are things that you can't hide from. What's the cost if you do try to hide from them? It could be quite a bit. In fines and in lives. Okay. So we have to start looking at this thing of being 100% responsible. So I ask you now, 1 or 2 words, what would your life be like if you were 100% responsible for it? Go ahead and throw that into the chat questions, and let's let Lisa give us a couple of them and see if anybody, what you're thinking, see if you're kind of all on the same page of what your life can be like if you're 100% responsible. Give you a quick second here.
We have some people saying less regrets. It'd be easy, difficult, but ultimately honest and potentially rewarding. Strong foundation of self, sense of accomplishment.
Okay. That's about how the conversation goes. But I got to tell you right now, you can't do it. You cannot be 100% responsible for your life. And if you tried, you will be stressed out beyond belief. Okay? You just can't do it. You cannot be, or could you ever be, 100% responsible for all the things in your life. Okay, well, maybe if you were in an isolated world in a monastery or on your own island, with no one else around you, maybe then, but reality says you cannot be 100% responsible, and I want to make sure that we kind of get there. So I want to ask him to put this right up at the top of the screen. It came out a little bit small. E plus R equals O. How many of you are familiar with that formula? How many of you recognize that? Anybody recognize that? Just say yes or the number one. Okay, it looked like a couple people have recognized that formula. I want you to, those who know the formula, go ahead and put this into the operating system. Those who don't, let's talk about it, and let's put it into your operating system. The formula is simply this. The event plus response equals the outcome. E plus R, the event plus response equals your outcome. Whatever that event is, how you choose to respond to it, that equals the outcome. Think about making this the new definition of taking 100% responsibility for things. Let's break it down just a hair more, though, for you. You are responsible for only these things, to be 100% responsible and only for these things. So allow me to share them with you. Number one, you're 100% responsible for what you do. Okay? You're 100% responsible for that, what you do. Number two, you're 100% responsible for what you do not do. Okay, no one else can take that blame for that. You didn't do it, your fault. You did it, you did it. Okay. Sometimes you don't do something and it's to your benefit and everyone's benefit not to do it. And the third thing, you're 100% responsible for how you react to what happens. What you do, what you do not do, and how you react to what happens, that's all you're responsible for. That is it. Put this into your operating system for everything, and that's all you need to have. That is it. You are firmly set. You will be standing on top of the mountain. That's your operating system. So let's make sure we kind of draw that into the rest of the day, into the things we need to do to get the skills and techniques in place. But I want to share a story with you. Once upon a time. Now, I have to give you a little bit of a warning here. The story I'm getting ready to share is true. It happened about 7 years ago, but it also just happened in Denver here. By the way, the best city in the world, Denver, Colorado. And don't argue that point. You can't argue because I'm here. You're not. But Denver, Colorado, the best city in the world. This just happened on Saturday. Not to the extent that it happened to me, but we're going to share this story because it's a powerful story. And I want to share it with you because you can take your attitude and the way this was taught to me is just powerful. So, once upon a time. Now, this particular aircraft that's in the picture here is a 777-200 series aircraft. Now, I got to tell you guys something. I warned you before. Danger Will Robinson. I'm a geek. Okay, so I'm giving you the geek alert already. I study things. I learn things. I do things that most people don't even think about doing because that's just me. I'm a geek. Just so you know, the geek alert is up. I do not get on an airplane unless I know that airplane. I mean, I have to know that airplane. And I used to fly before the pandemic about 42 times a year I was on an airplane. 40 or 42 times each week I was on an airplane. Got to fly all over the world. But I will not get on an airplane unless I truly know that airplane. Like, for example, this 777-200, 209 feet and 1 inches long. Don't forget the 1 inch. 209 feet, 1 inch long. The wingspan, 212 feet and 7 inches long. When the plane is totally empty, it weighs 304,000 pounds. It can weigh as much as 656,000 pounds. That's the maximum takeoff weight, MTOW. That's how much they can load it up. It can carry up to 45,200 gallons of fuel. See, I know planes. I pay attention to them. I figure things out. This, by the way, I know planes so well that I don't listen to flight attendants. I just don't listen to them because I know where the emergency doors are. Hey, I told you guys I can read minds. Some of you are saying, oh, you should always listen to flight attendants. No, I don't listen to flight attendants because I know where the emergency doors are. On this particular plane, I knew where the rafts were. So if we did make a water landing, I knew how to get to the rafts fast. So of course, I know where the oxygen mask is. So I don't listen to them, and neither do you. But I don't listen to them for that reason. But they used to play a game on the airline from Los Angeles to Honolulu. They call it the halfway to Hawaii game. Whoever guest closest to the halfway point to Hawaii would win a bottle of champagne, some flowers, or a lei, or something like that. But here's the deal: I can play that game and win that game before we leave the ground because I know how to find the flight plan, the route the plane's on. I can find the weather. I can put it all together and have that game won before we even leave the ground. That's how geeky I am. I can just make things happen that way. So on this particular July morning, I went to get on the airplane and I had my answer in my hand. I walked right up to the captain. Her name was Captain Susan. I said, "Here's my answer for the halfway to Hawaii game. May I have my bottle of champagne now, please?" She goes, "Oh, no, sir, I'm sorry. We don't play that game anymore." And I said, "No, here," shoving at it. "No, here it is. It's right here. Look at it." So she takes that out of my hand. She looks at it. She turns around, does a couple of things in the computers, closes it back up, and gives it back to me and says, "But sir, we don't play that game anymore." It was right. My answer was right. Now I'm mad at her, so I'm not going to listen to her either. Okay? I'm just not going to listen to her either. So I go get my seat and tell the flight attendant, "Hey, bring me a free bottle of champagne. I won this game." They didn't listen to me. Here's the thing. Captain Susan's the one who taught me all this. And she said her first order of business is always remember, don't stay helpless. Okay. Now, Captain Susan is one of the most powerful people that you ever want to know. But you absolutely cannot be helpless in situations. And I say this in order to have a positive attitude, powerful attitude. You cannot be helpless with your employees or your peers. You may feel like getting rid of somebody. You may say, "I quit." No, just fire them. You, to have a powerful attitude, may not ever stay helpless. You just can't do it. It's just not allowed for you to do that. On the flight, we're going around pretty good. We're about 2 hours away from our landing in Honolulu. Now, like I said, I'm good at this. I don't mind it. We're flying. I got a nice seat 2 hours away. And when Captain Susan comes on the PA system, and she has 3 words that made me sit straight up in my seat. Okay, 3 words. Now, again, I just emphasize to you, Captain Susan is all about 5'6", red hair, fiery personality. She's got a potty mouth, but just a strong, powerful person all the way around. When she said these 3 words, though, these 3 words are, when the captain usually says those, you look out the window, she says, you don't really worry about it. But these 3 words, the way she said it, made me sit straight up in my seat. Those 3 words were, "Ladies and gentlemen." Normally, ladies and gentlemen, look out the left side of the plane. We're over here. Those 3 words made me sit straight up in my seat. That's that PA announcement. Now, you'll understand where the operating system comes into place here. What you do not do, and how you react. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to divert our landing today and land in Kona, Hawaii. Now, my geek jumps right up. Wait a minute, why are we going to Kona? We're on a little bit further of northern track than normal, so Honolulu was still closer to us than Kona. Why are we going to Kona? Honolulu's closer. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to divert our landing today and land in Kona because our right side engine will soon stop working. The right side engine, 38,000 feet in the air, is going to stop working. Well, my geek is still riding strong. Why are we going to Kona? Honolulu's closer. Comes to find out that whenever an airplane is in imminent danger of crashing, they will always divert it away from Honolulu. Why? Because there's so many planes coming from so far. Fuel starts to get low. It's hard to divert that many planes. At this point, had we had enough fuel, had we not gotten so far past the halfway point, we would have turned around and went back to Los Angeles. But that wasn't an option. The option was to go ahead and put this plane down in Kona. Okay. So that's what we ended up having to do, is put it down in Kona. Okay. Now, everything going on here, here's my question. Could she afford to give up? Could she afford to give up? I'm going to ask you, can you afford to give up? Can you afford to be helpless and give up? This policy is too hard. The safety, the way the roads are set up, the way the shot is set up is too hard. You can't afford to give up. And that's the first thing she said you have to remember if you're going to have a positive attitude. You just don't give up. Yes, you may have to liberate an employee back to the marketplace. Liberate that employee back to the marketplace. But you don't really give up on them. You're liberating them so they can be free to find their mission, their passion, their joy. Because if they can't cut it there, they don't want to be there. Okay? You can't give up. So here's what happened. This airplane, when the engine cuts off, not a vibration, but it kind of goes into a shimmer. You can feel it shimmering. We're starting to come down. Turns out that we lost 12,000 feet in altitude and slowed down by 200 miles per hour within the first 6 minutes. We were gliding to the Pacific Ocean. We're on our way down to it. Okay. Can't afford to give up. You have to continue to battle. Okay. You have to continue to battle. This all happened within 6 minutes. The airplane is gliding to the ocean. The airline, at this point, had reached out to the Coast Guard and the Navy and said, "We have an airplane that's on this track. They will soon be in the water. Will you please go get them?" We're on our way to the ocean. She didn't give up, and I'm going to ask you to start thinking about these employees or these people you don't like, or the difficulty of the task of pulling off a safe production site, to never give up. You can't afford it. You can't afford it. The next area she has a lot of passion for. She has a passion for flying. And she said, "You got to have that." So the only reason her and I kind of bonded was because we discovered we both learned how to fly in high school. I caught the bug and she caught the bug, but her bug was 100 times more powerful than my bug. She decided that she was going to go into college and enroll in the Air Force ROTC so that she could go to the Air Force and learn how to fly jets. That's what she wanted to have happen. She wanted to learn how to fly jets. Her passion was so strong, you have to understand, during this time period, women were not allowed to fly fighter jets. They weren't deemed possible. Now, that's a long time ago. Not that long. But that's a while back. But she had a passion, enough passion, to overcome that. She had enough passion to overcome that. She had enough passion to rise up with the airline to become a captain of one of the heaviest commercial aircrafts in the world. Okay. What is your passion, by the way? What are you passionate about? And by the way, it may not be this job. See, I know this gentleman very well, actually, who had a passion for traveling all his whole life. His passion was not the United States Postal Service, because his passion was to travel. But he realized the more I learn about the Postal Service, the more I learn about the industry, the more promotions I can get, the more money I can make, I can travel better. I can travel longer. Then he started to realize, if I keep on moving up the ranks, I'm going to have a nice retirement. I can retire kind of early and be able to follow my passion. He connected his passion to the Postal Service. The better he is at the Postal Service, the more he'd have money to retire on and still be able to travel and enjoy life and be able to do it early. See, Napoleon Hill calls this your definite chief aim. Those of you who haven't read the book, go get the book, Think and Grow Rich. He said you have to have a definite chief aim. You have to have a reason why you're doing these things that you can power through it. His reasoning, he's going to travel. So he would power through the life at the post office to do that. If you're having trouble deciding what your passion is, it's already up on the screen. Think about your childhood hopes and dreams. What did you want as a child? Put it on me for a second. The one thing I always enjoyed doing was telling stories. That was my hope, my dreams. I enjoyed telling stories. I enjoyed playing the piano in front of people. I enjoyed talking to people. Think about your childhood hopes and dreams. That'll start you down the path, if you don't know what your passion is, to getting your passion. Your attitude is so important, and your attitude will come from that passion. The second thing I want you to do, for you right now, to identify what your personal values are. What do you value? Do you value money? Do you value relationships? Do you value cars? Do you value religion? Spirituality? What is it that you value? You need to jot those things down. With the framework of your childhood hopes and dreams, if you write those down, you're going to really begin to develop what your passions are. You're going to really almost know at this point. But the third thing that I need for you to do that will lock your passions in for you if you're struggling with them, do a best possible self-exercise. In other words, take a few minutes and write down, at your best, what does your day look like? What does your month look like? If I'm at my best, how does that go? What does that look like? How does that feel? Do a best possible self-exercise. Do those 3 things if you're struggling to find out what your passion is. Or if you have anybody on your team that doesn't really know what their passion is, they feel like they're just out there floating around, okay, have them do that. So the next area that Captain Susan says you got to understand that you must take massive action. You must take massive action, which means you have to put yourself out there. You have to take the chance to make things happen. Massive action is critical for you. But here's what I want you to start taking massive action at being. To be who you need to be. Massive action on a daily basis. Who do you need to be? I am the person who does what's right. That's my mantra. I am the person who does what's right. Who do you need to be? So now think about that just for my mantra. I am the person who does what's right. What that says for me right away is, number one, what do I do? If I'm the person who does what's right, what do I do? If I'm the person who makes sure I don't do the wrong things, what do I not do? If I'm the person who is the person who does what's right, how do I react to things? Be who you need to be. That takes massive action. So just a quick quiz for you. If you're going to be who you need to be, and you observe somebody just maybe taking a ream of paper out of the copy room, what do you do? What do you not do? And how are you going to respond to that situation? It's just a ream of paper. It's not a big deal, is it? But if you're the person who's going to do what's right, and you're going to put massive action into that, there's something you're going to do, something you're not going to do, and how you're going to react to it. Be who you need to be. Create a plan of action. Now, this does take massive action. To create a plan, I'm going to suggest you create a plan based upon a checklist. Create a checklist. Oh, there it is. I read somebody's mind. They don't, a checklist. Why? Well, how many times do you think a pilot flies their airplane? Flies that same plane? How many times do you think Captain Susan has flown her 777? She has a checklist for everything. She has a long checklist of everything she has to do before she's even allowed to start the engine. Then after she starts the engine, she's got a checklist of that. The story I was telling you about where Melissa's someone got hurt in the center, that all could have been avoided if they would have had a checklist. So I'm going to ask you to take massive action and start using a checklist. Okay, use that checklist so you know that you're taking massive action, you're getting things done. Okay, you know what's happening. Number 3, I want you to execute on your plan. I want you to execute on your plan. Use your checklist. Okay? Use your checklist to do it. Don't trust yourself and miss something. Get somebody else hurt because you missed a checklist. You have checklists. Use your checklist. I'm going to highly suggest you do that. Take massive action. Ladies and gentlemen, just make sure you take tons of massive action so that you can actually get things accomplished. Last one that nobody likes. Take massive action and eliminate distractions. Stop multitasking. Ooh, somebody said a bad word. Stop multitasking. I told you guys I could read your minds. Stop multitasking. Put your phone away. Just because you're working from home, or you guys don't get to do that very much, but just because you're on a site doesn't mean that you can be checking your phone every half hour. I mean, that's if you're great at not checking your phone, you check it only every half hour. Now, there's some people who check the phones without it even buzzing in their pockets or going off. They just look to see if they missed a call. That creates distractions. It creates problems. It creates injuries. It takes a massive amount of action for you to start to eliminate those. It takes a massive amount of action for you to start to eliminate those. All right. Next rule. Here's some homework for you. A little bit of homework. I want you tonight to go home and write down the massive action you're going to take. What are the massive actions you're going to take? Now, remember I said at the start, you got to immerse yourself. You got to implement. Here's your first step to implement what we're talking about today. What massive actions you're going to take, and then later on, the next day, you can start building out your checklist. But what massive actions are you willing to take? Do you have a plan? Taking action without a plan will cause you to be lost. When did you create anything without a plan? If you did, look at it again. Because you're wasting your time if you don't have a plan to implement things. If you don't have a plan. Okay. The next area. Got to get you to start thinking about going the extra mile or two. You got to start going the extra mile or two, which simply means that you're willing to do more than others. You want to be in service to your other coworkers. You're willing to do more in service to your clients. You're willing to do more in service to help the community be stronger. A lot of you are from Vancouver. Okay? A lot of you are from Toronto. A lot of you from all over. What are you doing to go that extra mile or two? You got to make that happen. Captain Susan would tell you, I went the extra mile or two just to make sure I could do this, fly jets. She said, you know what when I got there, I decided if I'm going to get this, I got to be better than everybody else, just a little bit in everything. I got to be better in the simulators. I got to be better in the air. I got to be better on the test. I got to have a better understanding of aerodynamics. I got to have a better understanding of all these issues. I have to go that extra mile or two. She said that habit stuck with her. I'm going to challenge you to go that extra mile or two, whether you're on a production site, whether you're in the office. Go that extra mile or two, and maybe the easiest ones go that extra mile or two of being in service to people. Maybe that's the easiest one, but you got to find ways to go that extra mile or two. I'll share this with you. Now, I have to be honest. I used to be able to, it took a while, but I used to be able to talk about this day without it emotionally bothering me. But on Saturday, when this happened here, the incident came up here, it brought it all back to life. So it's a little bit raw for me right now. So I'm going to get through it, but forgive me if I kind of get lost in it. Okay, so you got to go that extra mile. Always learn more than what you have to learn. So Captain Susan, like I said, the airline had already reached out to say, the Coast Guard and Navy said, listen, we have a plane that's more than likely going to be in the water. Please go get them. So this plane, by the way, is capable of flying on one engine. It's not a problem for it, except for some reason, when the engine died, it wasn't behaving like it was in the simulator. They said that engine was like a big, huge anchor had been dropped into the water, and it was dragging this plane through the water. So it's like the anchor had become a big, huge chute that was just dragging us down. This plane is more than capable of landing in the water. It's so well constructed, it would have landed in the water and it would have been just fine. We all would have had to get off the airplane because it's not watertight. That plane was eventually going to sink, and we didn't know how long we were going to sit in the water, but I guarantee you it's going to be more than 4 or 5 hours waiting for rescue. So Captain Susan started going that extra mile or two, and she remembered everything she'd done. Even she had created this habit, so even now she understood things. She understood, okay, well, this plane's not behaving properly, so this is probably why. So what we have to do is just let the plane go ahead and settle down. And she said, this is the end of July. The outside temperature is this. The water temperature is that. She did some math and said, you know what? If I get it to this altitude, there should be enough lift coming off the water to keep us in the air. So she went back to the airline and said, hey, this is what I came up with. This is the game plan. The airline said, yes, Captain, we agree with your numbers. But remember this. If you go 1,000 feet below that, you need to prepare the plane and the passengers for the water, because that's where you're going to be. When she got control of this airplane, we were 6 minutes away from being in the water. 6 minutes away. Go the extra mile, save 355 people's lives that day, including mine. Be willing to go that extra mile or two all the time. So I'm going to stress you a little bit. You need to go the extra mile in these areas. Your communication skills, your leadership intelligence, your leadership skills, and then your personal development. How many of you have read the book Think and Grow Rich? If you haven't, put that on your list to read first. Put that on your list to read first. Okay. I want to add one to that, though. Industry knowledge. I want you to start pushing yourself to go that extra mile or two so you can gain industry knowledge. I want you to be able to have some industry knowledge. I want you to be able to look at certain things and get things done. There's a call center that I had the pleasure of working with, and they got a hold of this concept. So they went, they were a healthcare call center, and they went to something is called the Kaiser Family Foundation. Some of you may have heard of them. What they are, they're a huge research center. They research things based upon health. So they have a division that studies Medicare and Medicaid. So they also started to look at how that affects insurance. And they wrote a great article about how the end of life care, you can't make that up in cost. You have to make that up early on, because if you get to end of life, it's always a losing proposition for all that care goes in there. So the gentleman found this article. Now, the people he gave it to, his entire staff, they would never mention this to anybody on the phone. They would not mention it to their customers. It didn't matter. They would not mention it to them. But they gave them the knowledge so they understood why the fees were so high. Because as time goes on, they got to be profitable. They got to be profitable, but they also got to be able to handle what that end of life is going to cost. So they got to understand that industry knowledge has got to be built. There's an NFL coach. We won't name names because we don't want to offend anybody, but there's an NFL coach who takes the same principle. He decided that he wanted to make sure that the people he's responsible for, his direct report, his coaches, not his players, his coaches, went the extra mile or two. So he decided, okay, in the off season, I'm going to interview these people. So he'd interview, if you were maybe the running backs coach, he'd interview you for a coordinator position. Wide receiver coach, quarterback. No, defensive line, he'd interview you for those. If you were one of the coordinators, he'd interview you for the coaching job. But what he said at the end of each season, he said, my guess is these 4 or 5 teams are going to be looking for coaches. You're going to interview for this city, you're going to interview for this city, you're going to interview for this city. It was his job to develop them so well, to give them so much industry knowledge that they would know that, like, if they're going to go to Atlanta, it's different than what it was in Denver or Seattle. It's different. They had enough industry knowledge to realize this team had this type of people on it. This team needed this type of people. So when it came time to interview, they could get there. Industry knowledge is so key and so crucial. I'm going to beg you to go that extra mile or two to gain industry knowledge. You can find all kinds of, when I was researching you guys a little bit, there's all kinds of information on the value that you provide. Everybody on your team should have that information. And you should have that information for all your competitors. Go the extra mile or two if you want to create greatness. If you want to have a great attitude, show your team, your peers, that you're going to have that, you can make this happen. Again, real quick, the essential leadership skills, communication. You got to have a great communication, got to have them all put together. Your attitude. Okay, we're working on attitude right now. So very powerful, so very important. Leadership intelligence, understanding the emotions. If you're going to be a great leader, you're not managing the task, you're managing the emotions of your team. The emotions of your team is what you're managing. And then your leadership skills. Leadership skills includes things like having that difficult conversation with somebody or having that uplifting conversation with somebody. How many of you right now have once a week or regularly scheduled meetings with the person you report to? Okay. A good friend of mine, mentor of mine, actually thought, well, we should have this meeting once a week, but it's your meeting. It's not my meeting. So you need to give me an agenda of what you want to cover. If I have to have a meeting with you, I'll set that separately. But this meeting is your meeting. I want to see that agenda on the Friday before we have that meeting on Tuesday that you want to have covered in the meeting. It's yours. That's the leadership skill. And you have to find out how to do that, how to have effective team meetings. These type of things you have to have massive action on. You've got to have this industry knowledge. You've got to have that industry knowledge. I want to ask everybody a quick question, though. Lisa, I'm going to need your help. Communication. What is the number one key of being a great communicator? Please put that in. What's the number one key to be a great communicator?
Being a good listener.
Okay.
Empathy, listening. Lots of listenings coming in.
Lots of listening and lots of empathy. Okay. I'm just wondering if anybody else has another thought. No.
We've got clarifying, active listening,
Okay.
authenticity.
Wow. I want somebody to explain to me. The person who said that, when we go to our question and answer session, if you're still here, I'd love for you to tell the audience what authenticity really is. Okay. And how do you develop that? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say wrong. Okay. What the number one key to being a great communicator is? The number one key is very simple. Stop talking. How many of you started to check your computers to see what happened? The most powerful communicators, especially in leadership positions, know to stop talking. We don't do that. We don't do that nearly enough. We like to talk. Now, I'm a trainer. I get to give keynote addresses, and I know I talk entirely too much. But when I was a leader, a manager, executive level management, I also talked too much. And I'm willing to bet that you guys talk too much. You know how I know? Because I can read your minds, for one. But let me give you this. Let's say you're having a discussion with somebody on your team that's constantly late. And you say to them, John, I got to get you here on time. It's really important because safety matters and we got to get you on time. What can you do to get here on time from now on? Well, John, do you think you get here? You think you can take the earlier bus? Before John gets a chance to answer, we jump right in and give John the answer. So can you get on the earlier bus? Why not just stop talking and allow that person to develop that? Now, granted, if they come up with something that doesn't make sense, if they come up with something that doesn't make sense, that's okay. There's a process called the swinging gate that you can use to allow that person to just go right through the gate and close it on them. Let me share that with you real quick. So I'm going to stop talking. And let's say that person comes back with, well, I can't get here on time. Well, you and I both know that's not an acceptable answer. The swinging gate says that you let that person know that you heard them. It's in 3 parts. So the first part is to let that person know that you heard what they said. And that could be something as simple as, oh, I follow what you're saying there. I'm tracking with you. So just something to kind of defuse the situation a little bit. Let them know you heard them. All right, appreciate that thought. I got you covered there. The most important part of it, though, is your transition, your transitory word. And that word is simply the word and. It cannot be but, it cannot be why, it cannot be however. It needs to be the word and. So put the first 2 parts together. Oh, I see where you're going there. And the last part, then you tell them exactly what's going to happen. So John goes, well, I just can't get here on time. It just goes, hey, I see where you're going right now, and I need you here on time. You've told that person you heard them. You transition to tell them what they need to have done. I challenge you to try this. It is so fun to do. You're just going to laugh up a storm. It's so fun to do when somebody goes, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I know I need to get here on time. There's a guy who's, I can always tell this, and we're doing live workshops. It's always the person, first row of the room, the person in the middle of the table. It's always that person. That person will always challenge me all day long and just have a blast challenge me. So we had just taught it. And he goes, I could never do that in my organization because that's just manipulating people. I see where you're going with that. His name is Ian. Ian, I see where you're going with that. And I'd like for you just to try it. Well, I'll try it. He didn't catch it. He didn't even catch it. He just got pulled into it. 2/3 of the room did and started laughing. Then he finally caught on and called me a bad name. Well, that's okay. Try this. Let them know you heard them. Transitional word. And. You got to get that out of the habit of saying but. And then go ahead and tell them what you need to have happen. But going back to stop talking. You have to get in the habit of stop talking. Ask the question. Now, the reason why we talk is because we feel the pressure ourselves. So here's my top secret. The geek alert should be going off right now. But here's my top secret here. I play a game inside my own head. I'll ask you a question, And then what I will do is I will sing the Jeopardy song in my head. Now, I will try to sing it 3 complete times. By the way, if you know me, you know when I'm doing it because I've got just a cool, jazzy version of it. It's cool. So I'll be tapping my foot to it a little bit because it's just that cool. But my hope is that I finally will have someone who will let me sing it 3 times in my head before they answer. Now there's no pressure on me. I'm having a good time in my head. Only twice now in my entire career has someone made me go to the 4th time before they answered. And I'm like, okay, hey, finally somebody's letting me go 3 times in my head. People don't let you do that. It's a lot of pressure on them. But I got to take the pressure off of myself so I can go ahead and let them answer. I have to stop talking. So you got to come up with a game for yourself. Okay? Don't take my Jeopardy song because it's too cool for you. No, just kidding. Come up with something that you're inside your head. I know one guy said, I solved for pi. And I said, pie? What are you talking about? Pumpkin pie? Pecan pie? What are you talking about? No, pi, the number. He says, I just started dividing it all out and I just solved for it. And I've never gotten past 14 digits, he said, before that person answers. I said, wow. And I thought I was a geek. Yeah, nope, that's you. Always be willing to go that extra mile or two. Always be willing to communicate. There are 7 of these steps to be a great communicator, and that was the number 1 step. Stop talking. Captain Susan, you got to start expecting great results. You must expect to have great, powerful results, and that's just the way it's got to be, some great, powerful results. Now, I told you already that Captain Susan has a little bit of a potty mouth. Well, not a little bit of one. She's got a potty mouth. She should have been in the Navy instead of the Air Force. During the interview process, they asked her, and her first officer standing by her, they asked her, so when you realized you were in as much trouble as you were in, what were you thinking? What were you saying? Her first officer jumped in, and I know Captain Susan well enough to know that she was mad when he answered, because he said it just the way she said it. She said to him, we're going to park this plane at the blankety blank gate. I cleaned it up for you. We're going to park it at the blankety blank gate. I don't want to hear anything else about it. We're parking it at the gate. And this is when we first started to glide toward the ocean. By the way, geek alert, 184 quadrillion gallons of water in the Pacific Ocean on an average day. 184 quadrillion gallons of water. What's 1 quadrillion? 1, then put 14 zeros behind it. That's 1 quadrillion, but on an average day, there's 184 quadrillion gallons of water in the Pacific Ocean. She said, we're parking this plane at the gate. Okay? Now, you have to understand something. That's a powerful expectation. When they have reached out. So after she got control of our airplane, that 2-hour trip turned in about 3 hours because we got so slow. We slowed down that much, almost 3 hours. They said after about an hour, we started gaining altitude again, a little bit of speed, but we're still very slow. And so we're creeping there. Here's what was interesting. The airline had reached out to Kona and said, we're going to have a major aircraft mishap, and there's going to be casualties. We're sorry, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to happen. One of the most powerful expectations you can set is the one that the Kona Hospital set. They had to prepare for this major aircraft mishap. What they said is that we're going to show the world how to do this. If this is going to happen on our watch in our city, we're going to show the world how to respond. May I ask you, what's your expectation for Actsafe members? May I ask you what your expectation is for your own life? Set some powerful goals. Real quickly, on this Kona Hospital, what they ended up having to do is they said, okay, we're going to teach the world how to do this. But the hospital itself was not physically big enough for 355 people in this emergency situation. So what they said is, everybody, we don't care if you just got off work 10 minutes ago after a 12-hour shift, you got to come back. They called the neighboring islands and said, we need your doctors and nurses here. Get them on an airplane now. Get them here. We need them here before this plane gets here. Then they decided that since this was going to happen, the hospital wasn't big enough. What we need to do, number one, is make sure that the ambulances have a clear shot from the airport to the hospital. And then it said, we're not big enough, so if we need to get someone maybe that just can go to urgent care center. So they named 5 urgent care centers. They closed the roads from the hospital to the urgent care centers. So there'd be no traffic. There'd be no traffic. And they said, but we need to construct tents in our parking lot because we don't have enough room. So they built a tent out there. They had several tents. One tent was the triage people. So as we came from the airport, we would get triaged. They had a tent to watch the jet fuel off of us. They had a tent to handle the burn victims. They had a tent to hold people for the surgery in case all the rooms were full. They had a tent for the dead bodies. They had congested all those out in the parking lot. You got to start expecting positive, powerful results. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is not science. This is not fluff. This is science. Okay, you have a system, and you call it the reticular activating system. Okay, and in that system, it takes over and it helps you decide. It helps filter things for you. So if you have a positive reaction set up, it can filter that reaction for you. It can help you see that. It kind of is your executive assistant. So if you tell your executive assistant, bring me results, you can get the results. By the way, this is the headline that was in the paper. Okay, Kona Hospital prepares for a major aircraft mishap. Okay, that was the headline from the date of this incident. But back to the reticular activating system. It operates as a top of the line filter of information. It helps create blind spots. So if you have positive things going on and positive expectation, it'll create blind spots to the negative or the other way around. It is your executive assistant. You give it an order, say, I want to be successful. It's going to do that for you. Okay. The reticular activating system allows you to focus on what you value. It allows you to perceive thoughts. If I need a thought to make this particular project work, if I know it's going to work, the thought of how it's going to work comes to me. It will always support you when you set up goals. Let me give you a quick example of how this works. We'll make it quick. A couple walking down the street in Denver for their anniversary. One of them kind of had real bad feelings about being in downtown Denver. The other one just loved it. Got to the hotel. They started talking about the experience. The lady who had the bad experience with downtown Denver, all she saw was the negative things. And the guy swore he didn't see any of that. And I know he swore it because that was me. I didn't see any of it. I loved downtown Denver. We used to sneak down there when I was in 7th, 8th grade. Loved it. She hated it. And so that was her view. Her expectation was it's going to be dirty. It's going to be a lot of bad people. My expectation was it's great to get back down here and have fun. Okay? It's great to be down here. So being flexible. You have to be flexible. That's the other thing she said you have to come up with. So understand this. Honolulu Airport, runway, 12,312 feet. The runway in Kona, 5,679 feet. Half the size. So when the airlines reached out and said, we're going to have a major aircraft mishap with casualties, their best hope, their best expectation was that she could get this airplane on the ground, get us slow enough so when we went off the other side of the runway, we'd be slow enough, it would be less casualties, maybe the fuel wouldn't ignite. That's what they said. That was their best expectation. Remember what her expectation is? I'm parking this blankety blank plane at the gate. That was what her expectation was. So she had to do something here. She had to decide, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to be flexible. I can't land the plane the normal way because if I land, when you land the normal way, you kind of glide into the runway. She had to execute what is called a hard landing. Now, for those of you who are pilots out there, you probably just got to shiver up your spine because a hard landing is one of the worst things you can do, but sometimes you have to do it. What that really means is that if that plane misses that hard landing, it can crack open like an egg. So or it could bounce back up in the air and let the tail scrape the ground, and then they're in trouble. Crack that plane open like an egg, it's going to explode at that end of the runway. If it bounces back up in the air and the tail hits the ground, it's going to force the nose down. We're going to die on that end of the runway instead of the other end. She went through everything. She figured it out and said, I got to be flexible here. I need every ounce of the runway. I need my back 2 wheels on the ground the split second. We're over that threshold. I can't guide in. I cannot glide down that runway. I need all of it. So that's what she decided to do. United Airlines reached out to her and said, okay, Captain, we understand. It's your airplane. Your decision. You know all the risk. How many of you are willing to make life and death decisions like that? But let me add on the last complicating piece for her. This landing, there's a picture taken of the airplane someplace on final. I don't know where we were. I know we were close though, because you can see the water coming up under the plane. The nose of the airplane is up really high. It almost looks like the plane's taking off at a too steep of an angle. The ideal with this landing is to get the airplane to be unairworthy, to stop flying 2 or so feet above the ground. It's got to be that close to the ground, and the airplane decides, okay, I can't fly anymore. And it just settles to the ground. It just not settles, but it'll come to the ground. That's what she had to do. But in order to make that happen, she had to get the nose up in the air and let the airplane just bleed off speed and make sure it could stop flying 2 to 3 feet above the ground. That's flexibility. When you consider the fact that the nose is up in the air and she can no longer see her target. You as a leader, aren't there times you no longer see the target? You no longer understand why this policy is in place, this is not in place, this is happening? You have to start to trust the process. You want to have a great attitude? Trust the process. That's what you have to do. Trust the process. Set it up, target it, set the process, and just trust it that this plane's going to stop flying. Now, I know this plane stopped flying at this point. Right above it, because you know those 4 news helicopters, and you can look at the films. You can see how quickly the plane stopped flying and that the back 2 wheels had touched the ground right at the threshold. Right at the threshold. You got to set your goals. You got to execute your plan. You got to change your plan if necessary, but you don't change your goals, by the way. Ready, fire, aim. Her goal was to park the plane at the gate. She had to change that to say, okay, here, this is what I'm going to do to get this. I'm going to do this hard landing. The back 2 wheels touched that plane, touched the ground the very second. The very second the plane was on the ground, across the threshold. Now, I want you to use your imagination here for a second. What had took place here, the back 2 wheels touched the ground. Okay? And when that back 2 wheels, instantly, the back 2 wheels touched the ground, the engine, the good engine, comes back on in full reverse. Now, I was sitting on the side of the good engine, and I heard that engine come up louder than I ever heard that type of engine ever come up. It was grinding. It was coming up hard. So the idea was that they had to start to slow this plane down as rapidly as possible, but understand the dynamic. One side of the plane, the left side of the plane, the engine is grinding backwards, trying to get the plane going backwards. While the airplane, even though it's not airworthy, is still traveling about 150 miles an hour. So imagine the fight that these pilots were having in the cabin on this airplane to keep it going down the runway. It wants to cartwheel. So they're having to fight this. Okay? They're having to fight this thing the whole way. The plane is starting to really shake. You can really feel it vibrating because they're fighting this the whole way. Now, the nose wheel finally comes to the ground. The problem was once the nose wheel got on the ground, the vibration, I can't even begin to tell you how much it doubled or tripled. I can't begin to tell you that. It was horrendous. It was so bad the overhead luggage bins were starting to pop open. Okay. But here's the geek in Glenn. Glenn sits up, does not listen to the pilot, sits up and looks out his window. I notice as we're looking out the window, as we go screaming down this runway, there's fire trucks and ambulances and the like. We pass them, they come on the runway to start chasing us down the runway. Well, you can't put the brakes on right away because it's still too fast and you don't want to burn the brakes up or get them too hot. But when we got slow enough, she put the brakes on. But she didn't just tap them, she locked them. Do you remember what I was doing? Not for long. I wasn't sitting up for long. I went head first into the seat in front of me. Now, here's what happened. I hit that seat so hard. I remember sitting back up and saying, you know what? I think I'll listen from now on. Had I not had my seatbelt on, I would have went through the seat in front of me. That's how hard this plane was trying to get stopped. Now, granted, I wasn't the only one with my head up because they heard a lot of people shouting out for their creator to come help them. Help us, somebody help us. Slowly slowing down though, I felt that I could feel the brakes, but I kind of all of a sudden realized the brakes had just popped loose. They had popped off. Now, me being the geek, the person I thought that meant we were absolutely safe because she wouldn't release those brakes if we weren't safe. So when I told Captain Susan that was my theory, she goes, no, you are kind of a geeky but dumb too. So I had to release the brakes at that point because about another 10, 15 seconds, they would have caught on fire. The last thing I want is for us to be on fire. So I had to release them, but yeah, we were safe. Ladies and gentlemen, are you flexible enough to make that type of decision? Are you flexible enough to say, okay, I'm going to get my goal. This is my expectation, but I got to change my plan a little bit. I got to ready, fire, and then adjust the aim. Here's the last thing that she talks about in this. Don't complain. Do not complain. It doesn't do you any good, but you should never complain to the people who report to you or to your peers. If you have a complaint for somebody, always have a plan. Have a plan how to make that complaint go away. Don't ever complain without a plan. I'm going to suggest you have documentation. Always have documentation. In fact, I'm going to suggest that you figure out Excel if you don't already know it, so you can show this person in the documentation what it is costing them to continue to go down this path. You need to show them what it's costing them their money. Bring this all together daily. Got to bring this all together daily. Don't be helpless. Be passionate. Take massive action. Expect the results. Be flexible, and don't complain. Bring this all together on a daily basis for everybody. Bring it together on your team. Bring it together for yourself. Bring it together for yourself. Put it together. Leadership mastery, by the way, is what we do. We have covered a lot of material. We tried to get through it pretty quickly because I want to have some time for questions and answers, because I want you to, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So here's my offer to you. If you think I've brought you some good and you'd like to hear more, go to scheduleglenn.com and schedule 10 minutes for us to chat. Okay, that's all you can get. There's 10 minutes for us to chat. Because here's what we'd like to bring to you. It's your ability to fill in the blanks. Okay, fill in the blanks. If you think this might be good at your shop or you want to do some more work with it, let's fill in the blanks. Let's figure out what you want, what's necessary for your team, and let's get this done. So I'm going to invite you to reach out for that 10 or 15-minute conversation, scheduleglenn.com. I'll buy the coffee. I can do that. Let's get to question and answer. I should let you know that these are custom crafted workshops, and we do offer 100% money back guarantee. But I want to share something else with you real quick. One last thing. Expecting positive results. Someone was kind enough to send me this picture of them building the tents for us, for our arrival. This lady saved 355 people's lives that day, and she did it twice because she has a powerful attitude. I challenge you to take hold of these things, get that powerful attitude, implement them, immerse yourself in them, implement everything you're going to learn over the next couple of days, and see what happens, and see what you can do, what you can accomplish. I'm sorry, I said one more thing before we go to question and answer. So we're on the runway. Plane is stopped. I have no idea how far we were away from going off, but we're there. We're there for, I don't know how long either. We were there for a while. But pretty soon we started seeing fire trucks and stuff pull away. But what I found interesting is once this plane got stopped, if this was the TV show or productions that you guys are on, you might have your audience applauding, yay, good job, yeah, screaming, yeah, hallelujah. This airplane was ghostly quiet. Nobody was talking. And we stayed that way. I bet we didn't start talking to each other until about 35, 40 minutes of being inside the airport itself, when we started talking to each other. Now, by the time we actually got off of Kona to get to Honolulu, we were all talking to each other because we were all pretty happy because United took very good care of us. We had plenty of, that liquid happiness pill. But we didn't say a word. It was so ghostly quiet on that airplane. We sit there, start watching these fire trucks pull off. There's a picture where the 3 fire trucks sat on our tail just in case the brakes stayed really hot. But all of a sudden, so Captain Susie tells me this after the fact. She says, all of a sudden she sees one of these little tow cars come up, the tow of airplanes, comes up and they get up in front of the plane and they back it up and hook up the tow bar to tow this airplane in. She beeped on the horn for them to get on the PA system. They got a little PA system to hook up. And she said, and I got to clean it up. Get that blankety blank thing out of the way or I'm going to run it over because I'm parking my plane at the gate. My question to you, are you going to park your career at the gate or are you going to put it in the water? What are you going to do? Let's go ahead and do some questions and answers. If you have any questions, let's go ahead and share them. Let's talk about them for a minute. What's out there?
Yeah, so I'm going to bring up some of the questions that came up during your presentation. Most recent is, did you say ready, fire, aim? Can you elaborate on that order?
Yeah, we spend too much time getting our ducks in a row aiming when things don't go right anyway. You can set up a ton of goals, a tons of everything, but you're going to say, okay, I got to get it perfect before I fire it off, before I take that step. So ready, fire means do the step and then correct the step if necessary. Set your goals, set your plans. You're going to have to change your plans. I equate it to we don't know what's out there. People used to teach set a 5-year goal. Really? Why would you set a 5-year goal? You don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. I challenge you to look at your credit card statement, for example, right now. You're going to, and what is on that credit card statement that you couldn't buy 5 years ago? You can't set, you have to kind of set your goals to kind of say, okay, I'm executing this goal. I will correct later, which is the aim part. Ready, fire, aim. Does that answer? I hope so.
Yeah, I think that was great. The other question that came up is, how do we keep positive, or how do we keep our positive outlook and go the extra mile during these difficult times?
Who are you? That would be my advice. Who are you? Who do you want to be? It's difficult, but if you want to be something, don't fake it, be it. And once you become something, and once you be in it, then it becomes easier. It is a thing of building up habit and endurance for it. But once you decide to be, so if you decide that you're going to be a great production assistant, I'm a person, what does that entail? Do not beat yourself up because it is tough. Okay. Give yourself credit when you do right, but don't beat yourself up when you don't do right. I would suggest that you journal. If your life is worth living, it's worth writing about. I would suggest that you journal. That you say, okay, I did this today, it didn't quite work out, but I'll do it better next time. Build the habit, build the muscle, but be it first.
As well, when you asked for the most important part of communication, somebody had answered authenticity that you wanted to come back to.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
what
if
does
they're
that mean?
still here, but
Yeah, I hope so, because I'd like to know, what is authenticity? What is it? Is it, if it's based upon what we just talked about here, is flexible being authentic? Some people say no. If you're flexible in your communication style, if you're going to communicate to people the way they need to hear it, I had a lady said, this is the way I talk. If they don't like it, that's too bad, because that's who I am. I'm not going to fake it. Is that really authenticity? Is that what you mean by that? That's why I asked that. And then there is true authenticity, but I want people to explain that to me because I don't really know what that is right now. I know being real and being honest, maybe that's it. But if that person's still here, maybe they can come up on stage and just tell us what they meant by that.
yeah, I'm not getting any response at the
Okay.
moment, but we'll see if they pop back in.
Okay.
Or they can put up their hand if they'd like, and we can have them.
Yeah, throw up your hand. Or if anybody else has a thought of what authenticity means and how it affects you and the people around you.
Yeah, they responded saying being real and honest with what is going on. Yeah, that's for me.
Okay, being real and honest. I can kind of live with that, being real and honest. So being honest about what's going on around you. Hey, it's a tough year, right? A lot of people are hurt. Okay.
There are a few people asking about the book recommendation. I believe it was Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich, written in 1937 by Napoleon Hill. One of my early mentors in this business told me you have to read this book at least 7 times before it starts to sink in. It's only like 200 pages long. But yeah, go get the book, Think and Grow Rich. Got another book for you to go get too. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You might read some things that kind of remind you of what we talked about today. Kind of. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Those 2 books should be in your library. As well as my 4 books, but don't worry about them. Just kidding. Just teasing about that. Shameless plug, Geek Alert. Okay, so,
Yes, people are agreeing with you that they're both great books, game changers.
Yes.
We had somebody else just kind of comment in, it's hard not to feel helpless when faced with obstacles over and over as a woman in a male-driven industry.
That's why I use the story of Captain Susan. Can you guys imagine? Can you imagine going to college and your parents don't want you in this service? They say women have no place being in the service. They don't go to. She was so afraid that she's going to go there, get in the service, and her parents are going to disown her because she did it, because she disobeyed her parents. Can you imagine the amount of stress that she had with that? I always kind of go to her story is not as bad as some people's story, but if some of these people can overcome this, then you need to understand that person, read that person, put that person, if you read Think and Grow Rich, you understand when I say mastermind, put that person in your mastermind group, okay, and read about them, learn about them, and understand the challenges they had. Mother Teresa, look at the challenges she had just in living her passion. How does she overcome them? Okay, how does she overcome them? Okay, recently, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, all the challenges she had, find books, and read about them. That's the only way that you can start gleaming some of the essence of these people to bring into your life.
We've had a few other questions come in. How do you effectively create a culture of change in a unionized environment where folks are complacent?
That is a tough one, and it starts with you, though. You got to build trust. You got to trust them first. You got to trust the union people first. You got to let them know you trust them to get the job done. That's the very first thing, and that's so critical. You got to trust them. And then you got to go to them and ask them how to do it. See, most of us leaders forget that that person's in the day-to-day grind of something. Maybe they have a better way of doing it than what you're saying do it. As long as it doesn't break regulations all completely apart. So if I was in that position, maybe I'm getting ready to retire and I just want to get by on my paycheck, my leader might come to me and say, hey, Glenn, you really know what you've been doing. You do it for a long time. We're kind of struggling with this process of change. How do you think is the best way for me to get the change across to people? Boom, doo. Just be quiet. Let them think about an answer. Put the ball back in their court. Give them the respect to say, you've been doing this for a while. Or, you got a really sharp mind going on there. What's the best way for us to implement this change? You got to trust them to give you the answer. If they can't give you the answer, if they give you a goofy answer, put them through the swinging gate and keep them there. But trust them first by putting the ball in their court. Ask the question.
All right, we have another question. Do you have any tips for creating a plan of action or daily checklist, things that will make it more practical to stick with?
It's kind of hard to do that just because I don't know what your job is and how that gets set up for your daily action plan there. I always kind of default to your morning ritual. What is your morning ritual like? Do you have a certain set things you do every morning? It's got to be for you. I mean, you can talk to some of these gurus that have a 2-hour morning ritual, 14, 15 steps long. And you got the other extreme, me, 3 steps, 3 things I got to do. What works for you? So Jeff Bezos, for example, his morning ritual is simply to get up, get a cup of coffee, and read the newspaper at the kitchen table. That's his morning ritual before he hits out. He says, if I miss that, the day's bad. Okay? My morning ritual is meditate, exercise, set up my to-do. 3 things. It's over with. It's easy. I chose the short one like that because it's easy, over with. It's easy. It sets the day up better for me, and it's so easy to accomplish that I have a win in the morning. So your checklist should be that simple, where like you say, let's talk about that organization down in Texas. Their checklist simply said, look at the parking lot to see if the parking lot has papers or trash in there. Notice, number 2, are there any strange cars in the parking lot? Look at the lights on the building. All the lights seem to be working in order and have been broken out. That's what the checklist. So they broke it down to very simple things. Their feeling was that they didn't hold people accountable for it. You're going to create your own checklist, hold yourself accountable for it. First, 6 months of using your checklist, make it where you actually physically check it off. But we can really get into that, when we really have a chance to look at your job, your duties.
All right. Somebody has said, don't complain. Can you elaborate on this point? When you face an issue and formulate a response based on financial loss or lowered team morale and are not taken seriously or viewed as being too much or not that important, how do you set up framework to be taken seriously?
I've always found that people, when they don't take you seriously, it's because they don't see the numbers. They don't see the facts. So the person I'm going to go to is a person who's above me. I'm going to pay attention to the chain of command. I'm going to go to that person. I'm going to let that person know that, this is what I'm saying. I need you to kind of take a look at it because I want the person here in this department to see it. What I'm saying to that person, though, is, okay, I have a complaint maybe, but here's what I need to do. I need to go ahead and say, the morale, when we lose our morale points, people drop out by 10%. They're 10% less productive. When this policy is in place, we're 10% less productive, which means we're going to do this, 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 and this. And it must be a very analytical approach. That's the only part that is almost a must. I'm going to make sure that the person I'm speaking to, I understand their communication style. So when it's time for me to present that, I'm not presenting it in my style. I'm presenting it in their style. So if they're a hard driving D type of personality, I'm going to present it that way. John, you know what you're doing. What do you think about this issue? Here's what I found. Here's what I discovered. You're a smart guy. What do you think? John, everybody loves you. You're a great person to be around. People want to be around. They want to be your teammates. We're losing our morale. Here's what it's costing us. What do you think? How do we keep them all involved? I've got to change my language for that person that needs to hear the complaint. And I got to be aware of that. And that's one of the areas of communication that does take a little bit of time. But you can do it if you just understand that person first. Understand them first. Out of 7 habits, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Understand that person first, then try to be understood.
All right, Glenn, so it looks like we're getting to the end of this session here. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of everyone that attended as well. I've been getting lots of praise in the comments. Thank you for sharing your stories and your expertise with us.
Well, it's my pleasure. I hope that everybody will do what I suggested at the very start. Create a plan to implement these things that you're learning over the next 2 days. You guys got a great 2 days of sessions coming up. Create the plan to implement them.
And if they have further questions, you had mentioned a 15-minute session with you.
Yeah, just drop on Schedule Glenn. It's a quick chat. It's 15 minutes chat. Let's just chat. Schedule Glenn. Hop on. Do it. Let's just talk.